Welcome back to the deep dive, where we really get into the weeds on the stories and the sources you've shared.
That's right.
Today, we're looking at a soccer match that, honestly, it kind of blew expectations out of the water, left a real mark.
Oh, definitely.
Hmm.
And it wasn't just any game, was it? We're talking about a real classic confrontation here.
Exactly. High stakes, the FIFA Club World Cup round of 16. Bayern Munich versus Flamengo, European giants against South American power.
Yeah, and this match, it felt like more than just the result. It was framed, really, as FIFA putting down a marker for the future of club soccer. A huge test for this, well, this massive new tournament format they've got. $1 billion vision, they're calling it.
That really puts it in perspective. So our mission here today for this deep dive is to unpack it all, the key moments, the tactical chess match, the individual brilliance, and figure out what this game tells us about where global club soccer is heading. We've got the official reports, expert takes, even quotes from the players and coaches.
Yeah, we've dug through quite a bit.
Our job is to pull out the really important stuff, the key insights, basically give you the shortcut to understanding why this match was so significant. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this one.
Definitely. And to really get why this game carried so much weight, we kind of have to talk about the stage first. The FIFA Club World Cup itself is going through this, well, enormous change. For years, it was that smaller annual thing. 7 teams often felt like a bit of a coronation for the European winner, more than a truly global fight.
Right, almost an afterthought sometimes.
Exactly. But that perception, it's shifting big time.
Oh, absolutely. The 2025 version isn't just bigger, it's a monster. It's now every 4 years, a quadrennial event. And get this, 32 teams. 32.
It's a massive jump.
And it's not just about bragging rights anymore, although there's plenty of that. The money involved is staggering. Reports are talking about $1 billion prize pool.
$1 billion. With a B.
Can you even wrap your head around that? The winner, just the winner alone, apparently takes home $125 million. That's genuinely game-changing money for any club anywhere.
And that scale, that prize money, that's exactly why this whole tournament and this specific match within it is seen as such a critical test.
Right.
FIFA is trying to elevate club soccer's prestige, its financial clout. They want it closer to the level of, say, the International World Cup.
A huge ambition.
It really is. Spreading it across the U.S., 11 cities, 12 venues, the final at MetLife.
Yeah.
It's a massive undertaking.
Yeah, Bayern versus Flamengo wasn't just about those two teams. It was about proving this whole new concept could work. Validating the vision.
You can also feel the pressure from that alone. So, okay, let's talk about these two teams. How did they actually get to this round of 16 clash in Miami?
Well, Flamengo came in as the reigning Copa Libertadores champions, South America's best. And they had looked really impressive in the group stage.
Impressive is an understatement, right? They topped Group A. And didn't they beat Chelsea? They did. Beat Chelsea 3-1. A really dominant performance that definitely sent a message. It showed their quality, their readiness for this level.
So Flamengo arrived with some serious momentum. What about Bayern?
Bayern qualified a bit differently through the UEFA 4-year ranking system, which basically rewards consistent high performance in the Champions League and Europa League.
Okay, so pedigree over recent trophy lift, in a way.
Sort of. They actually finished second in their group, Group T. They had a little slip up, lost 0-1 to Benfica.
Okay. So maybe not quite as dominant coming in as Flamengo. Added a bit of intrigue.
Exactly. It maybe took a tiny bit of the invincible aura away, which just made this knockout game even more anticipated. You had the in-form South American champ versus the slightly less perfect European powerhouse.
Okay, so the stage is set. June 29th, 2025. Hard Rock Stadium, Miami Gardens, Florida. Nice venue, but I hear the conditions were rough.
Oh, rough is putting it mildly. Reports consistently described it as extremely hot and humid. We're talking 31 degrees Celsius, that's about 88 Fahrenheit.
Wow. That's brutal for high-intensity soccer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They actually had official cooling breaks during the match for both teams.
Yeah.
That tells you how demanding it was physically.
Just adds another layer of challenge. But beyond the heat, the atmosphere sounds like it was something else entirely.
It really was extraordinary. Attendance was nearly 61,000 fans, and the sources estimate that something like 80 to 90% of them were wearing Flamengo's red and black.
80 to 90%.
In Miami.
Yep. It created this incredible home-like atmosphere for Flamengo, even though they were thousands of miles from Rio. Just a sea of red and black, apparently. The noise must have been incredible.
That's wild. So Flamengo basically had a massive home crowd advantage, despite being on neutral U.S. soil. What does that actually do in a game like this? Does it genuinely lift the players?
Oh, it's a huge psychological factor. Think about it. Every Flamengo touch, every tackle won, every shot, met with this enormous roar.
Yeah.
It can definitely energize your players, help them dig deeper, push through that heat and fatigue, and conversely, it puts immense pressure on the opposition. Bayern must have felt like they were playing a true away game.
No doubt. They're used to massive support, but facing that kind of wall of sound for the other team, it's intimidating.
Yeah.
And then add the physical toll. 31 degrees, the humidity. It saps your energy.
It changes the game tactically, too, right? You can't press as high for as long.
Exactly. It affects endurance, the speed of play, how effectively you can press, how precise your passes are. Coaches have to be much smarter about subs, about managing energy levels. Those cooling breaks weren't just for show. You could see both teams trying to conserve energy at times.
Okay, so the stage is dramatically set. Intense heat, a massively pro-Flamengo crowd. Now, what happened when the whistle blew? You mentioned an explosive start.
Explosive doesn't even cover it. The first half, especially the first 10 minutes, it was a whirlwind. Bayern got off to what you can only call a dream start.
How fast?
We're talking the 6th minute. Joshua Kimmich swings in a corner kick, and disaster for Flamengo. Their own player, Erick Pulgar, accidentally deflected into his own net.
Oh no, an own goal that early.
Yep. 1-0 Bayern, almost before anyone had settled in. A complete nightmare start for Flamengo and for Pulgar personally.
That's brutal, and Bayern didn't let up, did they?
Not at all. Just 3 minutes later, 9th minute, Kane gets on the score sheet.
Kane already.
Dayot Upamecano plays him in. Kane hits it with his left foot off the post and in. Bang. 2-0 Bayern inside 10 minutes.
Wow. 2-0 down that fast against Bayern Munich. How do you even process that as a Flamengo player? That must have been absolutely crushing.
It's an incredibly tough blow. Psychologically, you're reeling, you're facing one of the best teams in the world, and boom, 2 quick goals, 1 unowned goal. It immediately makes you question everything, your focus, your defensive setup.
But Flamengo didn't just collapse.
To their immense credit, no. They showed some serious character, some real resilience. Took them a while to regroup, but in the 33rd minute, their captain, Gerson, produced a moment of absolute magic.
Ah, the Gerson goal. I heard about this one.
Yeah, described as a world-class strike. A left-footed shot from distance flew right into the top corner. Commentators called it pure soccer artistry.
And the crowd must have gone insane.
Oh, you better believe it. A deafening roar, the report said. Remember, 80–90% Flamengo fans. That goal, that moment of individual brilliance, it completely reignited their belief. 2-1, game on.
You could probably feel the stadium shake. That's the beauty of soccer, right? One moment can change everything.
Absolutely. But Bayern being Bayern, they had an answer. And relatively quickly, too.
They just stamped out the comeback hopes.
Pretty much. Just when Flamengo might have felt they were getting a foothold, maybe push for an equalizer before halftime, 41st minute, Arrascaeta pops up.
Another goal.
Another goal. A powerful shot from outside the box. Made it 3-1, restored that 2-goal cushion right before the break.
Ah, killer timing. So 3-1 at halftime. That early Bayern blitz, even with Gerson's incredible strike, must have given Bayern a pretty comfortable psychological edge going into the second half.
It definitely gave them control, allowed them to manage the game pace, knowing they had that buffer.
Real.
And it really highlighted Bayern's clinical side, didn't it? They took their chances.
Yeah.
Goretzka's goal showed they could score in different ways, too, not just Kane finishing moves.
Sure.
But Flamengo's response, especially Gerson's goal, showed their spirit. It was pure individual flair against Bayern's efficiency. That contrast was really clear already. And those early goals, tactically, it forced Flamengo to chase, which naturally opened up space for Bayern's counters. It dictated the whole flow.
So Bayern seemed relatively comfortable at 3-1 up. But knowing this game, I have a feeling the second half wasn't straightforward either.
Not at all. The drama was far from over. Early in the second half, actually, the momentum shifted again. 55th minute.
What happened?
Penalty to Flamengo. Michael Elise, the Bayern player, was called for a handball inside the penalty area.
A handball. Okay. Big chance for Flamengo.
Huge chance. And stepping up to take it was Jorginho. You know, bags of experience from playing in England with Arsenal and Chelsea. Very cool customer.
And did he convert?
He did. Slotted it home calmly, made it 3-2, and suddenly the game felt incredibly tense again. That penalty just pumped new life into Flamengo, into the crowd. The pressure ramped right back up on Bayern.
Wow, 3-2. It must have been a real nail-biter for the Bayern supporters, watching that lead shrink again.
Absolutely nerve-wracking. But, you know, this is often where the true champion quality shows. When the pressure is highest,
They find a way.
they find a way. And Bayern did. Specifically, Harry Kane did. Again,
His second goal.
his second goal. 73rd minute, it was a killer pass from Kimmich. We need to talk more about his influence. A perfect through ball. Kane gets onto it, right-footed finish. Clinical. 4-2 Bayern.
And that felt like the one that sealed it.
That was the decisive blow. You could almost feel the tension release for Bayern. It gave them that crucial 2-goal cushion back with less than 20 minutes to go. Just a moment of class, composure under pressure that finally put the game out of Flamengo's reach.
What a game. 4-2. Goals, drama, individual brilliance. Okay, let's shift focus a bit. Let's zoom in on the tactics. Both coaches, Company for Bayern and Felipe Luis for Flamengo, used a 4-2-3-1 formation, which is pretty common these days.
Very common. It's seen as offering good balance, flexibility in attack and defense, a sign of that sort of tactical convergence you see in modern top-level soccer.
But the way they used that 4-2-3-1 was quite different, wasn't it? Let's start with Bayern and Company. What was their approach?
Company's Bayern was all about aggression. Specifically, an aggressive high press. Their forwards, their attacking midfielders, they push way up the pitch when Flamengo had the ball, trying to force mistakes deep in Flamengo territory.
Trying to win the ball back quickly and close to goal.
Exactly. And not just pressing, but counter-pressing. The moment Bayern lost the ball, the instruction was immediate pressure to win it back within seconds. Don't let Flamengo settle. Don't let them play out.
And the sources said this was key to their goals.
Crucially, yes. One source explicitly stated, all goals came from successful high press and counter-pressing. It wasn't luck. It was the direct result of executing that proactive, aggressive game plan.
Interesting. Any other specific tactical wrinkles from Bayern?
Yeah, there was a clever move involving Joshua Kimmich, nominally a midfielder, but when Bayern had possession, he often dropped deeper, almost alongside the two center backs, forming a temporary back three.
Why do that? What did it allow?
It allowed their right fullback, Konrad Laimer, to bomb forward much more aggressively down the wing. He essentially became an extra attacker, creating overloads, providing width. It was a smart way to add attacking threat while maintaining some defensive stability with that back three structure.
So very dynamic and aggressive setup from Company. How did Felipe Luis and Flamengo try to combat that with their 4-2-3-1? What was their plan?
Flamengo's approach under Luis was more about defensive solidity. They aimed for a compact shape, particularly in the middle of the park, trying to deny Bayern space to play through centrally.
So less about pressing high, more about staying organized deeper.
Generally, yes. It was a blend, really. You still have that traditional Brazilian technical skill players comfortable keeping the ball in tight areas, but Luis tried to combine that with modern tactical discipline, holding their shape, working as a unit.
Who are the key players in their system?
The central midfield duo, Gerson and Jorginho, were vital. They were tasked with controlling the tempo, shielding the defense, but also being the starting point for Flamengo's attacks.
But ultimately, it wasn't enough to handle Bayern's press, right? Why did Bayern's approach work so well against a technically skilled team like Flamengo?
Because Bayern's press was executed with such intensity and, crucially, synchronization. Everyone knew their role, when to press, where to press. Against a team like Flamengo, who want time on the ball to build attacks from the back and use their flair, that constant pressure is incredibly disruptive.
Forces errors, quick decisions.
Exactly. It rushes them. It stops them finding their rhythm. And where did Flamengo's execution fall short? Well, defensively, especially in those opening minutes. That own goal from a corner, it suggests a lapse in organization, in concentration. Set pieces demand discipline.
They just weren't ready for that early blitz.
It seems that way.
Right.
They looked disorganized, and Bayern punished them ruthlessly. So it wasn't just the formations being the same, it was how they were implemented. Company was proactive, aggressive, forcing the issue. Luis was perhaps a bit more reactive, trying to contain, and Bayern's early storm just overwhelmed that approach.
It really shows the difference coaching philosophy can make even with the same basic structure. Now, beyond the starting lineups and initial plans, what about substitutions? Bench depth often plays a huge role, especially in demanding conditions like that Miami Heat.
Oh, absolutely crucial. And this seemed to be another area where Bayern had a distinct advantage. Their bench depth looked really strong.
Like, who could they bring on?
Well, for example, Kingsley Coman, a top winger, got injured. But Bayern could replace him with Leroy Sané, another player with electric pace, great skill. There was no real drop-off in quality, maybe even a different kind of threat.
So they could maintain that attacking pressure.
Yes. And later, they brought on Alexander Pavlovic for Goretzka, probably to shore things up defensively as Flamengo pushed. Then Jamal Musiala came on, added even more technical quality, creativity in midfield. They had high-caliber options who could change the game or see it out.
That's a luxury not every team has. How did it compare to Flamengo's substitutions?
Flamengo's changes felt much more reactive, often forced, like Allen coming on for Erick Pulgar, who was injured after the own goal.
Yeah.
That's not a planned tactical switch, it's patching a hole.
Right, it disrupts the coach's original plan.
Precisely. While Allen is a good player, a forced sub limits your ability to proactively change the game's flow. Bayern could make strategic changes to improve or adapt. Flamengo seemed to be reacting to circumstances. That difference, especially late in a hot, tiring game, can be massive. Bayern could bring on fresh quality to maintain their press. Flamengo were plugging gaps.
Makes sense. Okay, tactics aside, let's talk individual performances. There were some clear standouts and maybe some less fortunate moments. Let's start with the star, Harry Kane. Man of the match, 9.5 out of 10 rating. That's stellar.
Absolutely clinical. That's the word. 2 shots, 2 goals, perfect finishing. That's what you pay the big money for, right?
Yeah.
Elite strikers deliver in big moments.
He even made a comment about it afterwards.
He did. He said something like, I know my game is largely judged by goals, but what German fans might realize is that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to help the team win. Which shows, his team ethic, but yeah, the goals were the story. They were decisive.
Who else really impressed for Bayern? There was talk about the fullback.
Konrad Laimer, rated 8.5. Some experts apparently called him the best player on the field, which is high praise considering Kane's goals.
Why was he rated so highly?
Because he was involved, directly or indirectly, in all 4 Bayern goals. Remember that tactical tweak with Kimmich dropping back? Laimer exploited that freedom brilliantly, bombing forward, but he also did his defensive work. A real modern two-way fullback performance, engine, quality, impact. Phenomenal.
And we can't forget the goalkeeper. Neuer made a key save.
Crucial save. Early on, 15th minute score was 2-0. Flamengo had a chance to make it 2-1, get right back in it psychologically. Neuer made the stop, maintained that 2-goal lead. Those moments early in games can be just as important as goals later on. It kept Bayern in firm control.
Absolutely vital. Now, shifting to Flamengo. Despite the loss, they clearly fought hard. Gerson stood out.
Definitely. Rated 8.0. As the captain, he really tried to lift his team. And that goal, world-class, pure soccer artistry. It was a moment of sheer individual brilliance that gave them hope and showed their quality. He stepped up.
And Jorginho, the penalty scorer.
Yeah, 7.5 rating. You could see his experience. Calm penalty under huge pressure. But beyond that, he was important in midfield, trying to organize things, dictate the tempo, using that experience he gained in the Premier League.
What about their keeper, Rossi? 4 goals conceded sounds rough.
It does, but he faced 8 shots in total. Reports suggest he performed his duties diligently. Sometimes you're just up against incredibly clinical finishing, like Bayern showed. Not much a keeper can do about perfect shots.
True. But then there's the flip side, Erick Pulgar.
Yeah.
His match sounds like it went about as badly as possible.
Yeah, unfortunately for him, a 5.0 rating. That early own goal was just a terrible start. Gifted Bayern the lead. And then he got injured shortly after and had to be substituted. That whole sequence was highlighted as a real turning point for Flamengo, putting them behind the 8 ball almost immediately.
It just shows how fine the margins are. One player's misfortune, another's brilliance.
Exactly. Kane's clinical finishing versus maybe chances Flamengo missed. Neuer's crucial save versus Pulgar's own goal. Gerson's moment of magic. Individual moments swing these big games.
It's fascinating how the narrative of the game feels so clear, but then you look at the stats and it gets complicated. Flamengo actually had slightly more possession?
Just slightly, yeah. 50.7% to Bayern's 49.3%. And maybe more surprisingly, Flamengo had more shots overall. 12 compared to Bayern's 8.
So wait, more ball, more shots, but they lose 4-2. That feels completely counterintuitive. How does that happen?
This is where Bayern's perfect efficiency, as the sources called it, just screams out from the page. They had fewer shots, but look closer. They had 4 shots on target, and all 4 went in.
4 shots on target, 4 goals, 100%.
100% conversion rate on shots on target. That is absolutely ruthless. Clinical doesn't even begin to describe it. It speaks volumes about their quality in front of goal.
Okay, that explains the scoreline despite the possession and shot counts. But then there's the expected goals, the XG data, which adds another layer. Flamengo's XG was higher.
Significantly higher, relatively speaking. Flamengo's XG was 1.37, while Bayern's was only 0.91.
So, based on the quality of chances created, Flamengo should have scored about 1.37 goals, and Bayern less than 1 goal. Yet the reality was 4-2 to Bayern. What does that huge gap tell us?
It tells us a few massive things. Firstly, XG measures the probability of a chance becoming a goal based on historical data shot location, type of shot, etc. Flamengo, with the higher XG, created chances that, statistically, are more likely to end up in the net.
But they didn't convert them at the expected rate.
Exactly. They underperformed their XG. Bayern, on the other hand, massively overperformed theirs, scoring 4 goals from chances collectively worth less than one expected goal. 0.91 XG is, well, it's extraordinary finishing.
It highlights that maturity of a top European team, as the source put it.
I think so. It shows that elite players, your Kanes, your Goretzkas, have the individual quality to convert low-probability chances into goals. It's that clinical edge, that composure, maybe that clutch factor that XG struggles to capture.
So it really boils down to that narrative of European efficiency versus South American flair. Flamengo created more, perhaps played more expansively, but Bayern were just brutally efficient.
That seems to be the story the stats tell, yes. Flamengo couldn't capitalize on their volume or the statistical quality of their chances. Bayern might have created less, but they were perfect when the opportunity arose. That 4 for 4 on target is the killer stat.
Remarkable. Now, beyond the goals and stats, the game sounds like it was pretty feisty, too. Lots of cards.
It was definitely intense. Flamengo picked up 4 yellow cards. Bayern got 5. 9 yellows in total tells you it was highly competitive, probably quite physical at times, lots of tactical fouls maybe. Both teams were desperate to win.
And corner kicks were even, but Bayern scored from theirs.
Both had 4 corners, yeah. But Bayern scored from their very first one, albeit the own goal. Still, it points again to set-piece execution being important.
But the officiating itself was under fire.
Apparently so. The English referee, Michael Oliver, his performance was described as one of the most chaotic referee performances in the Club World Cup.
Chaotic is a really strong word for officiating at this level. What does that suggest about the game? And how much can controversial refereeing impact a match like this?
Well, chaotic usually implies inconsistency, maybe fouls being called differently at different times, cards given or not given when people expected them. It suggests the referee struggled to control a very intense, high-stakes game.
And that can definitely affect the players and the flow.
Absolutely. Inconsistent refereeing frustrates players, it can change momentum, it can lead to arguments and dissent. And in a huge, globally televised match, controversial decisions inevitably become a major talking point, sometimes overshadowing the actual play. It certainly seems like it added another layer of drama to this already eventful match.
Okay, so after all the goals, the stats, the drama, the controversy, what was the feeling immediately after the final whistle? What did the coaches and players say?
Well, Vincent Kompany for Bayern was understandably pleased. He talked about the team finding the right rhythm. And significantly, he doubled down on the tactics, saying goals all came from successful high press and counter-pressing.
So, complete validation for his game plan.
Exactly. Seeing your tactical approach work so effectively, leading directly to goals in a big knockout game, that's huge for a coach.
And on the flip side, Flamengo's coach, Felipe Luis, it sounds like he was pretty honest.
Very candid, yeah. He did make excuses, he said, quote, "We had our chances, but unfortunately they were the stronger team in this game. It is a fact that the football elite still remains in Europe."
Wow. That's a powerful statement. The football elite still remains in Europe.
It really is. It's a frank admission of the current hierarchy in global club soccer, acknowledging that gaps still exist, even though Flamengo clearly competed hard and had their moments. It carries a lot of weight coming from the South American coach after a loss like that.
And what about the man of the match, Harry Kane? What were his thoughts?
Kane acknowledged how tough it was. He said, "It was a tough game. Every time we felt we had pulled away, they pulled us back." He specifically mentioned his second goal, the 4th for Bayern, saying how important it was for easing the tension.
He felt the pressure then.
Oh, yeah. But he also immediately looked forward, already talking about the next match against PSG. That classic elite striker mindset, celebrate the win, but focus quickly shifts to the next challenge.
That PSG match sounds tasty. A rematch of the 2020 Champions League final, right?
Exactly. So Bayern's win didn't just put them in the quarterfinals. It set up this massive high-profile clash. Great for the tournament's narrative. And for Bayern, this win, achieved under tough conditions, really boosts their confidence in this new format. Shows they can handle it.
And for Flamengo, what's the takeaway for them and maybe for South American soccer in this new Club World Cup?
Even though they went out in the round of 16, their overall performance, especially beating Chelsea in the group stage, was significant. It proved that top South American teams absolutely can compete in this expanded format.
They showed they belong.
Definitely. They caused problems for Bayern, showed their quality, So while the result reinforces maybe the existing European dominance, Flamengo's performance offered glimpses that the balance could shift. It suggests this new tournament might be more competitive, more unpredictable than some expected.
It feels like this match really was a crucial data point for FIFA, for everyone evaluating this new Club World Cup.
For sure. It highlighted the intensity, the tactical battles, the physical demands, the potential for drama. It sets a high bar for the rest of the tournament and gives everyone a sense of what this new era of global club soccer might look like.
So if we try and boil it all down, this Bayern-Flamengo clash was just a fantastic spectacle, wasn't it? It perfectly captured that tension we often talk about.
Yeah, the tactical discipline and ruthless efficiency of top European sides, like Bayern showed.
Clashing right up against the technical skill, the flair, the sheer passion you often associate with South American teams like Flamengo.
And in this instance, Bayern's cold-blooded finishing, that ability to convert nearly every chance, was the difference maker. It let them overcome a very talented opponent who, on paper, actually created more dangerous situations according to the XG.
It really was more than just 90 minutes of soccer. It felt like a showcase for everything that makes the modern game so compelling. You had the strategy, the chess match between the coaches.
You had those moments of stunning individual brilliance, like Gerson's goal or Kane's finishing.
You had that raw emotion, that intensity pouring down from the stands and reflected on the pitch. Just a brilliant advertisement for the sport.
And going back to the start, a really important test for this new Club World Cup format. It delivered drama, quality, talking points, everything FIFA would have hoped for, really, in terms of showing the potential of this expanded competition.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up this deep dive, here's something to maybe chew on. We saw this huge gap between the expected goals, what the stats suggested should have happened, and the actual 4-2 scoreline.
Right, Bayern scoring way more than their XG, Flamengo scoring less.
So what does that really tell us about the very top level of soccer? Does it mean there's still this intangible clutch factor, this ability to deliver under pressure that numbers just can't quite capture? Is it about individual brilliance defying the averages?
Or is it possible that as this new Club World Cup unfolds, as we get more games, a larger sample size of these intercontinental clashes, will those statistical outliers start to normalize? Will XG and actual results align more closely over time?
Or will the pressure moments always allow for players and teams to drastically over or underperform the stats? Something to definitely keep an eye on as this new era of global club soccer continues.